Jesus said the sea and the waves would be roaring. There's been tsunamis in recent years that have killed hundreds of thousands of people. It's just incredible, the devastation from earthquakes in the ocean that have caused tsunamis that just have caused so much destruction. And here's another chart where it shows the International Disaster Database, again, in the last 100 years, where you can see that it was very, very small, very level up until around the 1960s. And then it just spikes, and especially very recently, it's spiked dramatically, where natural disasters are occurring more and more and more throughout the world.
The Mediterranean cyclone brought massive downpours to Genoa, with rainfall reaching 4 times the monthly average in just 24 hours. Streams and rivers overflowed, flooding streets and mercilessly sweeping away everything in their path. The aftermath of a storm that caused a massive fire in the Italian city of Savona. The unbelievably strong winds knocked down trees mercilessly. Heavy rainfall flooded the city. Can you believe how crazy the weather got in sunny Italy? When a fierce storm hit their hometown of Catania, Sicilians couldn't even recognize it anymore. For several days, heavy rains poured all over the region, accompanied by strong winds. Imagine what it was like for those who had to go to work in such conditions. They had to wade through nearly 1.5 feet of rainfall. It's hard to find someone who hasn't heard about what went down in Dubai in mid-April 2024. The financial hub of the Middle East got slammed with a flood. Unusual heavy rains, which don't happen too often in that region, turned the streets into waterways. The whole world was left scratching their heads. Locals are used to droughts. Tourists expected scorching heat. But nature decided to throw a curveball for everyone at once. Travelers were particularly shocked by the sudden weather change. Airports got flooded, and numerous flights had to be rescheduled or canceled. No matter what plans people make, nature's the one calling the shots.
That make you wonder whether it's time to get new neighbors or an entirely new place to live. Imagine how much rain it takes to cause the air conditioner to switch to liquid cooling mode. Quake in Indonesia, a group of people decided to go to the mall and immediately regretted it. This was a tsunami capable of flooding an entire city. These people got lucky and no one was harmed, but don't make the same mistake yourself. I didn't know Olympus was in Guatemala. How else do you explain such an impressive lightning bolt at the top? Be like to watch the roads in your hometown turn into raging rivers. Unfortunately, this is exactly what residents of the Spanish city of Parque Venecia had to witness. At least there's no one outside. Have you ever seen what a storm looks like on Mars? Well, you don't have to look it up after seeing this storm on the shores of Normandy. This unstoppable tsunami was the result of a magnitude 9 earthquake in Japan and perfectly demonstrates that there's nowhere to escape from the forces of nature. You'll not be safe on land or on water.
This is what days of pounding rain has done to the southernmost region of Brazil, the city of Canoas, just outside the state capital. Boats having to replace cars. And helicopters becoming a small beacon of hope as people await rescue. A body-worn camera captures the moment a soldier uses a brick to break the roof of a house to free a baby trapped by floodwater. A scene now too familiar for the people of Rio Grande do Sul, as the military and volunteers frantically race to save others who need help.
I am 53 years old and this is the first time our house is flooded. It has never flooded before. We never thought we would go through this.
At least 80 people are known to have died, more than 100 are still missing, and over 100,000 can't return home. Almost everyone in the region has a story of rescue, survival, and sadly, loss. Last week, the president described the floods as being the largest Brazil had ever seen. Never before had so much rain fallen in one single location, he said. Weather across South America is currently being affected by the phenomenon of El Niño, which warms surface waters and causes intense rainfall in the south of Brazil and drought in the north. More rain is forecast in the coming days. A state of alert has been reissued, with no respite in sight for the towns and cities already submerged in record-breaking floodwater.
Heavy rainfall wreaked havoc in southern China over the weekend, causing extensive flooding of homes, streets, and farmland. Tens of millions of people are at risk as rescuers work tirelessly to evacuate those trapped by rising waters. According to state-run news agency Xinhua, at least 11 individuals are missing, with 6 from the town of Jiangwen near Shaoguan City in the mountainous north of the province. State media reports that over 82,500 people have been relocated due to widespread floods, with the local government citing the severity of the situation. Since April 16, sustained torrential rains have pounded the Pearl River Delta, a vital manufacturing hub and one of China's most densely populated areas. Record rainfall for April has been recorded at 4 weather stations in Guangdong. The Pearl River Basin experiences annual flooding from April to September, but recent years have seen more intense rainstorms and severe floods. Last year, China witnessed more intense and extreme downpours during the flood season than in previous years, with numerous weather stations recording record-breaking rainfall, according to the China Meteorological Administration.
Back at home here, we've been following another round of severe storms hitting California. Across the state, we're seeing mudslides, rivers overflowing and flooding. It's all because of a system known as an atmospheric river. Jonathan Vigliotti shows us how serious conditions are.
Southern California remains in the midst of a storm for the history books. Powerful and life-threatening. A sea of mud and debris from relentless downpours, flooding roads, swelling creeks. This is the normally dry LA River.
That's the refrigerator.
We were on this road in the city's heavily populated San Fernando Valley, where a wall of mud and boulders came crashing down. 16 people were evacuated. Devastating conditions seen throughout the region. The storm, which the National Weather Service had warned of being potentially catastrophic, hitting the entire California coast. To the north, wind gusts topped 100 miles per hour. The Sacramento River, a raging current. In San Jose, just one of numerous rescues from rising floodwaters. This tree falling onto a car, another hallmark of this storm. Uprooted trees causing at least 3 deaths and major damage. The result of ground now saturated from a series of atmospheric rivers. Watch what happens to this tree in the community of Loomis. Back in Los Angeles, residents are still coming to grips with a storm for the ages.
Extreme weather doesn't begin to capture what's happening in Dubai. This week, the largest city in the United Arab Emirates got about 2 years worth of rain in one day. And CBS's Chris Livesay reports they're still trying to get one of the world's busiest airports back to normal.
A parched desert turned into a lake. Some 10 inches of rain in a single storm.
Water too much.
More than the United Arab Emirates had seen in 75 years.
Because there is so much of water here.
It's absolutely horrendous. It's the worst I've ever seen it in Dubai. And we've seen some bad storms in the past, but this was like nothing else. It was like an alien invasion. The sky just kept on flashing thunder, non-stop, almost non-stop. I've never seen so much rain in all my life.
In this oil-rich region, luxury vehicles plowed through the highways and streets transformed into muddy rivers as futuristic skyscrapers were swallowed by ghoulish storm clouds. At Dubai International Airport, a wave of flight cancellations and delays, forcing the world's second busiest hub to warn passengers to stay away unless it was absolutely necessary. Schools were closed, homes destroyed, and shopping malls engulfed in water. But rescuers proved ready to evacuate more than just men, women, and children.
Okay, let's go.
Chris Livesay, CBS News, Rome.
Now to the stunning images, the massive wave slamming a U.S. military base home to some of the Army's most sophisticated space tracking equipment. Look at the video tonight. Waves smashing through the doors of the U.S. Army base on the Marshall Islands in the West Pacific, crashing right through the windows there, knocking people off their feet. Here's Trevor Ault tonight.
Keep the door closed. Whoa! Tonight, recovery efforts underway after this terrifying video capturing an extreme wave hitting a U.S. Army base in the Marshall Islands. The wave striking Roy Namor Island Saturday night, home to some of the U.S. Army's most sophisticated space tracking equipment. The force of the water plowing through the doors. Another wave rushing in, taking out the windows. Get out of here! Pitching everyone into darkness as the lights go out. The Army saying only a few minor injuries were sustained, but about 80 people were evacuated to the nearby Kwajalein Atoll. The Army now assessing the damage by air, finding massive damage to the island's infrastructure and multiple areas under standing water. The Marshall Islands is a nation of low-lying islands and atolls, halfway between Hawaii and Australia. It's considered the front lines of climate change as rising sea levels contribute to powerful waves and flooding. These images showing damage to the chapel and dining facility.
This is going to go down in Quad's history books as one of its most challenging times ever in its 80-year history.
And David, tonight the Army says recovery at this base could take months. David?
Trevor Ault with us tonight. Trevor, thank you.
.800 kilometers away, in the small seaside village of Laupahoehoe, children and teachers gather to prepare for the day's classes. Marsu McShane is one of the teachers.
We were in our cottages, and the Akionas who lived in that house that's no longer there knocked on our door and said, "Come see the tidal wave."
At first glance, it's deceptively innocent.
We looked over, and the wave, ocean sucked out, and then it came in a little bit more, like emptying a bathtub, and sucked out again. And we said, "This is a tidal wave? I don't think much of that." And then it did it again. And this time, it went in further and sucked out more. And we thought, a twin tidal wave, how interesting and odd.
As the water recedes, an extraordinary 152 meters, Marsu and her roommates pose for a photograph. Marsu stands captivated while a third wave approaches.
Famous last words, I said, "I hope this will be a big one." And it kept coming. And that was the first time we ever thought to be afraid. This got bigger, and so we dropped the camera, ran inside. I can remember the water just crashed in the windows. The roof fell down.
The wave tosses Marsu like a rag doll, at first in towards the school, but then suddenly out towards the sea.
I knew I was going to die.
Marsu spends the next 9 hours clinging to debris before finally being rescued. She is the only lucky one. All of her roommates perish. At the school, 16 children and 5 teachers are lost. But the tsunami is not finished with Hawaii. 37 kilometers south of Laupahoehoe, the sleepy trading town of Hilo Bay is also caught unawares. Here, the tsunami destroys nearly 500 homes and businesses, kills 96, and injures hundreds.
Descriptions of the 1946 tsunami were that it came across the breakwater with the greatest of ease, just overcame it, and then washed across town. Other people describe seeing boulders blasted out as the water surged across. It pretty much wiped out everything that was on the ocean side of town.
The third wave reached a run-up height of 9 meters. It destroyed most of the foreshore of Hilo Bay. But less than 15 years after the 46 disaster, Hawaii would again be hit by a deadly tsunami. A wave bigger than the last that would defy logic and bring Hilo to its knees once more. On May 22, 1960, the largest earthquake in recorded history ruptures the Earth's crust off the coast of Chile. 1,000 kilometers of the ocean floor is violently thrust up 20 meters, spawning a monster tsunami. It's so huge and powerful that it crosses the entire Pacific Ocean, slamming into Hawaii on the way.
In the preceding 12 years, about 3 out of 4 alarms had turned out to be small tsunamis. So instead of inspiring fear, let's get away from this potential disaster, I think it inspired curiosity, because it is a fascinating phenomenon. Let's go down and watch.
Just after midnight, the first wave strikes.
You could hear people yelling and screaming behind me that were being caught in the wave. That was an experience because, you know, and it still stays in my mind, all this screaming and yelling, and I couldn't do anything about it. It sounded like several trains, you know, rushing down a track. I mean, it was really a roar. And, you know, you can hear the crashing of houses against each other. It's hard to describe. It was just a sound that you don't want to hear again. I mean, it was horrible.
Dawn breaks on a nightmare. 61 people are dead and more than 700 buildings destroyed or severely damaged. The 1960 tsunami took locals and experts by surprise. But when a local tsunami hits Japan, it strikes with larger and more powerful waves than the 46 and 60 Hawaiian tsunamis combined. Second only to Hawaii, Japan is the most tsunami-prone location in the Pacific. The Japanese have been hit so many times by these giant waves that they created the word tsunami, meaning harbor wave, to describe these terrifying events. (10:17 p.m., July 12, 1993). A magnitude 7.8 earthquake rips the ocean floor off the coast of Hokkaido. Fisherman Jiro Adachi from the village of Aonai knows about tsunamis. He survived one 10 years earlier that also hit Okushiri. When Jiro feels the earthquake, he knows a tsunami is probable. Somehow, Jiro manages to find firm ground. He flees to the safety of a nearby hill. In a few terrifying minutes, the tsunami destroys 80 houses and fishing shacks. But the danger is not over. Out of the darkness, a second wave strikes. Homes, boats, cars and trucks spared by the first wave are smashed to pieces. Fires erupt as gas pipes burst. Aonai is under siege. The aftermath of the disaster confronts scientists with an intriguing mystery. The two waves that hit Aonai came from completely different directions.
The first wave of the tsunami came from the west area where the seismic center was, and it attacked only the low part in the south area of Aonai.
But the second wave came from the east, away from the tsunami's source. The Okushiri event shows how destructive a local tsunami can be. It strikes with undiluted power and too quickly to respond. But that disaster was eclipsed by a far bigger and more deadly tsunami. A wave generated by an earthquake so powerful it moved the entire planet. A wave that takes us one step closer to a mega disaster. The tsunami that hit Okushiri, Japan, came from just 80 kilometers away and reached a run-up height of 31 meters. But it pales in comparison to the deadliest tsunami of modern times. (7:58 a.m. December 26, 2004). Deep in the ocean off the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia, 1,200 kilometers of the Earth's crust ruptures in the second largest earthquake ever recorded. The 9.3 quake shatters buildings and destroys lives. But it is just a forerunner of an even more horrific disaster. 16 minutes after the quake and 250 kilometers from its epicenter, northern Sumatra is struck by 35-meter-high waves. The capital city of Banda Aceh is decimated. More than 160,000 people are killed. An hour and a half after Banda Aceh is leveled, the tsunami strikes Thailand. A wall of water swamps beachside villas, hotels, and villages.
That wave is a good 15, 20 feet tall. Easy. Get in.
More than 8,000 people die. (2,000 kilometers to the west, on the island nation of Sri Lanka, 100 billion tons of water surges inland, killing 35,000 people and leaving another 500,000 homeless. In all, nearly 230,000 people die in the most devastating tsunami in recorded history. The death toll higher than for all other major tsunamis in the past 300 years combined. The entire planet's sea level rose by 1/10 of a millimeter. Every spot on Earth moved at least 1 centimeter.
I didn't know what it was. And at that moment, the floor exploded.
The tsunami rushes in, destroying the bungalow.
The force of the water was phenomenal. You know, to be exploded out of your bed, you know, to feel a piece of furniture just be thrown up into the air and to be thrown off it and to have to jump, it's just very weird. And to then be sucked out and tossed around like being in a washing machine.
The couple grab their son and scramble into the bathroom.
With each wave, with the intensity of each wave, it would fill up the shower cubicle completely. We would be swirling around underwater, trying to, regain our purchase on whatever we could find.
As the waves continue to pound, the concrete walls of the bathroom begin to crumble. Hector is trapped under a large piece of concrete, struggling to keep his head above water.
The idea of your child dying before you it's nothing worse.
A third wave surges over Hector's head. He's seconds from death. But instead of drowning him, miraculously, it lifts the concrete slab off his foot and releases him. The wave that's caused so much death in this one instance is life-saving. Surging forward and sucking back, billions of tons of swift-moving water carry a dangerous mass of deadly projectiles, broken timber, glass, metal, and vehicles. The third wave turned Gaul into one of the hardest-hit areas in the nation. How and why the Gaul area was hit by this third wave intrigued experts. Where did it come from? The tsunami was so powerful, its reflected energy carried a third wave 800 kilometers back across the Indian Ocean. In total, over 4,000 people died in the Gaul region. Many mysteries about the Indian Ocean tsunami remain unanswered. One of the biggest questions is how the highest waves could possibly have reached a staggering run-up height of 35 meters. Far beyond what had been thought physically possible by an earthquake-triggered tsunami. Tsunamis are global-sized events with global ramifications. They combine the almost unlimited power of the earth with the gargantuan might of the sea.
Residents in southern Florida are dealing with very dangerous conditions. So as Manuel Bojorquez reports, widespread flash flooding and rainfall of historic proportions are making getting around near impossible.
A relentless storm system continues to pummel South Florida, causing life-threatening flash flooding. On the state's east coast, the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area saw rainfall rates of over 3 inches per hour on Wednesday, blurring the boundary between land and sea, fish even swimming through the streets.
With the state of emergency right now in Florida, some parts of Florida flooded by nearly 2 feet of rain, bracing for up to 8 more inches of rain. Tonight, there are warnings of life-threatening and potentially catastrophic flooding.
Tonight, life-threatening flooding in Florida, a state of emergency in multiple counties. Feet of rain already, and it's still coming down. Sheets of rain in Bonita Springs, north of Naples. Visibility near zero on roads. The National Weather Service warning of new catastrophic floods after a tropical-fueled deluge that swamped whole neighborhoods in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area, forcing the shutdown of part of I-95 and stranding vehicles everywhere.
Florida's highways are jammed with traffic as thousands scramble to get out of the path of Hurricane Ian.
Get out. Right now, okay? Everybody needs to go.
We are thinking of the millions in the path of this hurricane, the Category 4 hurricane slamming into Florida's southwest coast this afternoon. Ian making landfall right near Fort Myers, 3:05 p.m., winds of 150 miles an hour. One of the strongest September hurricanes to strike the U.S. in decades. Already tonight, catastrophic damage, storm surges that have destroyed homes and wiped away cars. Devastating winds and now the rain, up to 30 inches of rain expected in some places. Still a Category 4 hurricane as we come on tonight, winds 130 miles an hour. It is just inching across Florida now. Images of the eye walls at Cayman Shore in Pine Island, Florida. AccuWeather video tonight of the fierce wind and storm surge from just before the hurricane made landfall. In Fort Myers, evidence of that storm surge just ahead of the hurricane. Cars and backyards in this neighborhood disappearing under several feet of water. In Fort Myers, that powerful winds ripping the roof off of this home the moment the eye wall hit Placida, Florida. The picture's right here, the torrential rains, the winds destroying this building. A traffic camera capturing landfall in Punta Gorda, trees blowing and the gusting rains. Tonight, more than 1.5 million customers in the dark. And look at the sparks there flying near these lines in downtown Naples. There in Naples and in several other communities tonight, curfews now in effect. First responders finding it very difficult at this hour. The storm surge flooding this Naples fire station, in fact.
Tonight, entire buildings swept away. Families trapped by floodwaters. Monstrous Hurricane Ian now lashing the Florida peninsula. Ian roaring on shore as a strong Category 4 with winds of 150 miles per hour. Official landfall, 3:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Landfall coming after hours of intense wind. As Ian came closer, our Ginger Z in Fort Myers broadcasting live in the eye wall.
David, we are in the eye wall of Hurricane Ian. That is the strongest part of the storm. You can see almost nothing behind me, but if you could, the eye is only about 5 miles to my west. Look at what's happening right here. We finally saw the wind start to shift, and we've got the surge starting to take over the pool here at our hotel. If you look a little farther, there was a dock. There's a little house at the end of that dock that has been surrounded by the water. Surge here anticipated anywhere from 12 to even 18 feet. That's the type that takes cars, takes homes. It is not just life-threatening, it is not survivable.
Then, about an hour later,
the storm is moving north of us, but we see these winds, and that little house that we were talking about all day has gone, succumbed to the storm surge. Now the blue roof is all that's left floating in the water toward the building.
AccuWeather capturing the eye wall piling water onto Pine Island as the storm moved on shore. Naples Fire Station taking on water. The storm undergoing rapid intensification ahead of landfall, increasing the hurricane-force wind field out 45 miles from the center. Hurricane hunters flying into Ian, knocked around by extreme turbulence.
There goes the beds. Holy cow. Oh!
One hurricane hunter describing it as one of the roughest flights of his career, that he'd never experienced that much lateral turbulence or seen that much lightning. One of the most powerful hurricanes to ever make landfall in Florida, now expected to cut across the state like a slow-moving buzzsaw.